Welcome back, everyone, to Shelf to Table. We talk about the freshest board games to your table. Something like that.
We'll work on it. We're working on it.
Yeah, great intro, right? Hey, at least I'm trying. All right, so we are going to go through our normal sequence that we have right now. We're going to do our Just Played section. We're going to talk about a bunch of games we got in the last week or two, however long it's been since our last podcast, who knows. And then we're going to do Excited to Play. Then finally some Kickstarter pre-order comments. And then our featured topic, which today is going to be Undaunted Stalingrad. So I'm going to just pass this off to you, Josh, and you're going to kick us off with our Just Played.
Yeah, so we actually were at the Extra Life charity event just this weekend and got a chance to play a lot of games. But one that I think we both kind of stood out to both of us was sort of a social deduction kind of puzzly game that was really interesting. I rated it quite highly. But that's going to be 23 Knives. So 23 Knives, Chance, I'll let you explain.
Yeah,
it,
because I taught it, right? Yeah, that makes sense. So 23 Knives is it's kind of a social deduction game where essentially you are going to be trying to influence the other players around the table to either be on the side of being a liberator or a loyalist to Caesar. So the loyalists, they want Caesar to live. Basically, that you're going to be a loyalist if you have a bunch of laurel wreaths or whatever in your tableau in front of you. And then if you're a liberator, you're going to have a bunch of these blood stains that you're kind of collecting to try to become the liberator. Now, there's also the role of the conspirator, which is if you have an equal number of those blood stains and laurel wreaths. And that's an interesting role. We'll get back to that in a second. But over the course of the game, basically, most of your actions are going to be drawing cards from these two decks. One of them is going to be the Sway deck. The other one's the Fate deck. So the Sway deck are the cards that you can kind of play into other people's tableaus to try to change their allegiance. And I like the idea of this one because in a lot of social deduction games, you're kind of assigned a role. And it's this is the role you're playing for the game. Whereas in 23 Knives, it's well, if people are playing Sway cards in your tableau and they play more of the bloodstains than the laurel wreaths, you're well, now I kind of want Caesar to die. Yeah. And you have literally been swayed. Yeah.
It felt like the roles were a lot more fluid in a lot of social deduction games, I think is what you're getting at. It's not so rigid. So you start out with your character card, which kind of indicates an initial alignment, maybe one way or the other, or one of three ways, like Chance said. You can be trying to kill Caesar. You can be trying to save Caesar and preserve the Roman Republic, I guess. Or you can be kind of in the middle, just trying to alter whatever the inevitable outcome is. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting that both you could kind of manipulate your own standing, other players could manipulate your standing, and you could just kind of be kind of a free agent where you're wavering between these different roles. I think in social deduction games, it's kind of it's frustrating sometimes when you're kind of assigned that role and you have to stick to it. Even if you're found out. Another interesting thing in this game is you can be actually exiled, which is another way to the players can kind of vote you off the island, and you can change your character and your alignment that way as well. And then another thing that I thought was interesting was, Chance talked about the wreaths and the blood stains to kind of indicate your alignment. And these are played in front of you in sort of like a tableau. Some of them will be face up, but a lot of them will be face down more often than not, and they have to be revealed by other players. So you can kind of outwardly present as being aligned with one faction, but really be kind of secretly manipulating your way into another. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I really like that whole revealed and hidden one, because one of those actions, like Josh was saying, was revealing one of those cards in someone's tableau so you could see if it's a bloodstain or a wreath or whatever. And most of the cards have one symbol on them. Some of them have two. So when you reveal a card that has two, you're oh, you've been lying the whole time. So I really like that mechanic. Then Josh was saying with that exile mechanic, I like how the way this one works, because this also has everyone has that character card, which gives you your initial alliance, but it has that cosmic encounter thing where essentially that character card is hidden at the start of the game, and when you reveal it, you basically get to take advantage of that power. So each character has its own power associated with it, and just like cosmic encounter, you just reveal it in that moment. That's going to benefit you the most, and you're haha, guess what, guys, I'm doing this now. And Josh had a crazy one. It was so generally you can only play one sway card into someone's tableau, but Josh has allowed him to play two down, so he could just completely change someone's alliance through the game.
A lot of power to kind of manipulate others' standing, and that kind of goes back to that fluidity of what faction you're aligned with. And I would agree with Chance. I thought it felt a lot like Cosmic Encounter, or it felt kind of inspired by that, in the sense that your character card is initially not revealed, and then it becomes revealed, and you have this power. But not only do you have a power, they're mostly quite they kind of bend and break the rules, and they're some of them are like hilariously overpowered, I would say, which might give you someone that you want to gang up on and kind of like exile maybe from the game. The other thing I thought was really interesting was the voting mechanic.
Oh, yeah.
You could speak more to.
Yeah, no, so the voting mechanic was one of my favorite parts of this. There are multiple times when you vote. One is that exile thing, like you could vote to exile the people and everyone would have to contribute. And what I liked about this was that, if you voted exile, I'm sure they're exiled, they get to change their character and stuff, which was actually kind of beneficial sometimes, like to change your character out.
It was fun. If nothing else, you get to see another cool power.
Like, it wasn't even
read
bad.
Some historical flavor text. Like, it's always interesting.
Like, I thought that was good. But then if you don't exile them, like if you fail to exile the person that called for the exile, they get shamed, which is awesome. Like, they have to reveal they have to reveal everything in their tableau, and their alliance at that point. You're like, aha, take that. And then there's the voting every time the round gets to the tribune, which is this board that travels around the table. And once it gets to that person, they're going to reveal 2 of these kind of like event cards, and then players are all going to vote on those. They're going to vote on which event they want to happen, and those events are going to do things like sometimes it's just going to be like, oh, add some fate cards to the deck or whatever, and that part we haven't even talked about, but like the fate cards are going to determine the final fate of Caesar. But some of them are going to be like, hey, everyone close your eyes, and then everyone that's not a conspirator, open your eyes. So, and then now everyone knows who the conspirator is in the game, and they're like, oh, and being a conspirator is hard in this, because having an equal tableau of those blood marks and laurels, like, that is a challenge during this game.
It's really tough. It's kind of, did we talk about it? It's kind of like a third path. So you're either trying to kill Caesar,
it's the middle
trying
path.
To not kill Caesar, or if you land squarely in the middle, like very neutral, exactly neutral, then you get a chance at the very end of the game to play cards to attempt to kind of swing it one way or the other, and then the conspirators win.
I like it a lot because it's like that, like you get to that end state, you count up the final like knives, the daggers and doves, which is in that fate deck. That's how you're going to determine if Caesar lives or dies. And then it's like, is anyone a conspirator? And then if they have fate cards, they can just dump them into that deck and be like, oh, you guys thought Caesar was living? Ah ha ha, too bad. He's dead.
Yeah, I think a lot of us playing were kind of angling at one point or another to be the conspirator, but it's just so hard, as Chance mentioned, because not only can you manipulate that, but other players can kind of do it for you. But yeah, it's kind of like you're playing 2 games, I would say. One game is sort of the more social deduction-y, like, what side am I on? I'm going to influence what side you're on and sway you. The other side are those, what were they called? Fate cards?
Fate cards.
Fate cards, where you're kind of stacking the deck that's going to be ultimately revealed at the end with knives or doves to decide like what the actual scoring condition is going to be. Like, is Caesar dead? Is he not dead? Are the conspirators going to have a chance to swing things? So really, really cool social deduction game. I mean, if it's not my favorite, it's in top like 2. I would say this and like Feed the Kraken I like quite a bit. I think I like this more. I think there's a bit more going on, and it's a wonderful game.
Yeah. So far, first play, highly recommend it. I can't wait to get this back to the table. I would say the worst thing about this was probably that some players probably took a little while to make their decisions. It's a pretty light game, so when someone kind of like slows down the game to make that decision, it can feel like it's dragging a little bit. But overall, I was pretty engaged and pretty entertained the whole time, so I didn't really have much of a problem with it. So
yeah, it's really, I mean, really.
And we also played at 7, so 7 was
we played with a lot of people.
It plays at 8 up to the higher player count, so 7 was kind of a lot.
Yeah, I would say once everybody knows what they're doing, maybe after the first game or like midway through the first game, like it should be a pretty snappy experience where you're just doing you essentially do one thing on your turn, unless it's the Tribune's turn. So pretty straightforward.
Overall, highly recommended. Recommend giving it a shot.
Really
can't wait to play it again.
Yeah, even if you're not like, I would say especially if you're not like normally a big social deduction person, it's very different in some of the ways we laid out. So I would highly recommend playing 23 Knives, even if you're not like normally into that type of game.
So two thumbs up from the shelf to table. All right, so let's move on to one of your games. This was Critter Kitchen.
Yeah, Critter Kitchen's been sitting on the shelf of shame for a little while now. I picked it up based on some of the thing. I played Flamecraft, which not the same designer but same artist, so they looked visually very very similar. I'm big on my board game artists, but you know, I enjoyed Flamecraft, and I saw the hype, and I was like, you know, I think I'll give it a shot. Like, I thought it sounded really interesting just from a glance at the mechanics and sort of the way that some of the hidden movement, which we'll talk about. But yeah, really, I thought it was really good. I didn't know quite how it would land going in. I expected maybe it would be good to start with like how it actually works. So essentially, you're building these, like, you're gathering ingredients with 3 workers or chefs at your restaurant to build dishes that will impress like a critic, restaurant critic, who's always like this cute little woodland creature, who's interested in different things and different combinations of ingredients on the plate and things like that. So you're trying to like score these ingredients through the course of 7 rounds, culminating with the chef's challenge at the end. And sort of the core thing going on is really interesting. This is like what really hooked me, and what I think is like most interesting about the game is you have kind of 3 classes of workers or chefs in your restaurant. One being sort of small and speedy, one in the middle, and then like a larger, more like lumbering character. So the small, speedy character can gather ingredients really fast, but has really limited carrying capacity, whereas like the big lumbering boar, who's like your heaviest worker, can carry lots of ingredients, but is going to get there very slowly. So there's kind of a hidden movement, action selection element where you're playing a card from your hand to send them out to one of these locations where the ingredients have been randomized. And this is all done simultaneously, so it plays really snappy. I think we finished in like 60 minutes. Basically then you're just like queuing up workers, right? So like I might have sent like a fast worker to location A, and Chance may have sent like a really slow worker to area A. I get first pick of the ingredients with my fast worker, but I just get 1, whereas he gets to take his pick of like 3. So I found that really interesting. And there were some locations that were really cool as well. Like one of them, the Midnight Market, doesn't actually reveal what's going to be available until you get there. One location allows you to recruit an extra a sous chef or a zoo chef, which is like an additional worker with unique mechanics or a unique ability that you can use in the next round. So I thought it was really cool. Overall, I had a good time playing it. I think I'd bring it back out to the table for sure. I think it's a keeper. My only complaint would be just like the setup. There's a lot of cards included, a lot of stuff for like solo plays and like the automa and things like that, which I ultimately just like stuck in a bag and kind of shifted off to the side. But yeah, what did you think?
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of pieces. Like going through, like all the boards are separate. Like there's not just one board you just put out on the table, which is a bit of a downside, right? Because then you have to like sort the things and be like, oh, we're throwing this market here, this market there.
A lot going on.
Yeah, so setup was a bit painful in getting through all the cards that you needed, and then like of course we've talked about this too. It has the solo mode, which it would be nice. Like I understand why solo modes exist. Like people want solo modes in their games, but it would be nice with those components. Like they had a good way to just isolate them, so you just know they're not needed for your game. Yeah. Like, but other than that, let's move on to the actual gameplay. I really enjoy systems where you have simultaneous action selection. Like I think that's one of my favorite things in games where everyone's just doing the same thing.
For the galaxy, roll for the galaxy.
Even you haven't played Mission Red Planet yet, but that has another one where everyone's doing simultaneous action selection. And I love this one where you have the 3 workers and you're basically choosing what 3 markets to send them to before anyone else reveals their cards. So you're actually choosing 3 locations to go to, and you're trying to judge on maybe what other people need, what you need, what's the most important thing for you to get, because you want your fast worker to go and grab that most important ingredient. Then your slow lumbering worker, you want him to go somewhere where there's going to be ingredients available. Mm-hmm. Like making sure that you're going to be able to carry things is the hardest thing with that big worker. So because if you go somewhere and those ingredients are gone, you basically get a consolation prize of 1 soup, which soup is a wild
ingredient, but you get 1 of it.
Yeah, and then you're going for like the quality ingredients, because there's a quality value on each one of the ingredients. The more quality you can have in a dish, the more points you can score. So yeah, you're really the game is really centered around that simultaneous action and just making sure that you can plan things out versus other players of getting those high quality ingredients before them to score the most points.
Yeah.
So like with that, I really like some of the core mechanics in it. I would say that the only part I didn't click with in the game is really the scoring. Like the scoring itself, I felt was a little dry. It wasn't as interesting as I wanted it to be. So I found that collecting the ingredients was the most exciting part of the game, and then like actually going through the scoring process was not terrible, but it was not not ideal, right?
Yeah, the end scoring is a little bit I won't say confusing. We had a little bit of a rough teach with the game, but like so final scoring was a little bit convoluted. We got like midway through it and we were like, wait, are we doing this right? Yeah. It turned out we were, but it just didn't feel like it. But yeah, that final like chef's that like critic meal at the very end is a little bit confusing the first time you play it. I think now I would probably teach it very differently, and it would flow a little bit better. But I agree that scoring was like somewhat dry, and really my enjoyment of the game stemmed from just like the ingredient gathering and kind of playing those location cards and sending your people out is really the heart of it.
Yeah, and that's the core of the game. So with that, it's one I'm excited to play again. So
yeah, and there is an expansion, the a la carte expansion, which I think came with like the Kickstarter version. Honestly, after reading a bit about it, I wasn't super interested, and we could do like a whole podcast on just like expansions and when they're worth it, when they're not. But my personal opinion, it adds like capacity for 2 more players, which I wasn't super interested in. Adds some like food carts and things you can visit, and I believe just some more variety with the chefs and the critics and things like that. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on the expansion as well. But overall, like I think the core game is really solid and one I would definitely bring back out.
Yeah, I agree. So that's going to do it for Critter Kitchen. So let's move on to the next game here. And this is a group hit. I think this is like a highlight of the year so far. This is going to be Alibis. Alibis is one I've gotten to the table a few times now, and it's a word game from All Play. The theme is that there's going to be some suspects out, and you're basically trying to deduce who the actual perp is during the game. So basically each suspect is going to have a word card dealt out onto it. You have like, I think 13 suspects in the game, and then everyone is going to be dealt 2 suspects cards, and then it changes up depending on player count. It has some modifications, so it all works out. But essentially, everyone's going to get their 2 suspect cards, and those are going to be people that have alibis. They were not part of the crime. And then there's one card that's put up at the top, face down. That is the actual perp. So out of all this lineup, you're trying to deduce who that perp is. And then the way it works is that those 2 cards you're dealt as a player, you're going to look out there and see what words are on those 2 suspects, and you're going to try to create a word that connects those 2. So basically, people can guess what 2 words your 1-word clue is associated with. Mm-hmm. So very similar to games like Codenames. It's just kind of like it reverses a little bit. Instead of the person coming up with the word and being like, oh, I'm going to give you 1 word plus a number, this one is just like, here are your 2 words that you're trying to connect. Now make a word to connect those 2 words. Yeah. So very similar formula, but I think it just, for me, this kills Codenames for me. Like, I don't want to play Codenames. I'd rather play Alibis. And it's really just because everyone is doing the same thing in the game. So Codenames, it's an asymmetric thing where one person's coming up with words, other people are guessing, and to me that puts someone on the spot. With Alibis, since everyone's doing the exact same thing, no one is kind of on the spot. They are all doing the same puzzle, trying to do the same problem.
Struggling with the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I find now the only flaw I have with this game is that some people can get really bad word pairings. Some people will get like an easy word pairing and they'll be like, oh, I know what word to do for this. And another person will be like, I have no idea. So the difficulty across players can be variable, but I just find this to be really entertaining, a lot of fun to play. And then, once you get to that point where everyone reveals their suspect, they reveal their clue, you just go through this whole thing where everyone's trying to deduce out where everyone's clues goes and then find that perp. And it's just exciting. It's a good time. It plays pretty quickly, super easy to teach. Overall, I'm loving Alibis. I highly recommend it. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's got a really nice combination of like the price point is really good for that type of game. The theme is really on point, which really to me is what differentiates it from some of the others. Like I've played most of the big games in that category, like Just One, So Clover, Decrypto, Wavelength, Edo, others, where you're just kind of like these word games,
party word games.
Yeah. This is probably top of the pile for me. I thought it was really interesting that you're all kind of coming up with your clues at the same time and playing those out together. Like I said, I think the fact that there's kind of a theme that actually makes sense is interesting. Like I like the artwork. I like that you have kind of these like comic book supervillains in their perp shots with the little height chart behind them. And it honestly, like the mechanics and the theme kind of like clicked, which is a rarity in that type of game, I would say. As far as like negatives, I think AP is always a problem with these types of games where somebody tries to come up with the perfect clue, and I definitely fell victim to it myself a couple times. But everybody's kind of struggling with that together. Yeah. So you can collectively kind of hurry each other up once you get to that point where maybe one person is just like struggling to come up with something. Yeah,
and if you have the right group, you just make fun of them, right?
You just poke fun at them as well. And I would agree with Chance that sometimes you just get a really unfortunate array of clues where like several of them apply to like one another. I don't know that that's a bad thing to me. I think that's kind of like interesting. That's where
that's like part of the game, right?
Yeah. And I really enjoyed at the end, like kind of like, you reveal one at a time which two perps you actually were supposed to be linked by the clue. And everyone collectively gets to kind of like talk about, oh, that was really good. Like, this is why I thought of that. And I thought the coolest part was at the end that there's that one. So you have your array of whatever it is, like 9 perps, and one of them actually didn't. It's more than 9, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
One of them actually is the perpetrator, and it's the one that no clue applied to. And when you actually get that right, I think one time when we played, I actually like got all of them, and that's just a great feeling. It was super fun.
Yeah, I think this leans into the idea. I think this clarifies my thoughts on like everyone doing the same thing during the game. I feel like. So in Codenames, when you're that in that one role, or maybe you're the guesser, or maybe you're the one giving the clue, like you have the potential to just feel bad. Like you're like, I'm just dumb. Like I don't know how I'm doing this. Whereas in Alibis, it's like everyone's dumb. And then when you do pull off that thing where you're just like, you guess that perp, it's like, oh man, that's crazy that you got that. Like holy crap. Like it's kind of like a high feeling. So I feel like the lows in those other word games can be a little bit lower just because you have a kind of that spotlight.
It's restricted to you.
Yeah.
Whereas like in this, it's kind of like
you're all struggling together.
You're working together. Yeah. I did feel a real sense of like team in that I don't normally experience in like co-op games, where I was like when we win, we all kind of win together, and that was exciting.
Yeah, so that's
I recommend for like a $15-$20 game, like really good. All Play's been knocking it out of the park with
the small
which
games.
Have been like Lure, Money,
Slambo,
Alibis, Slambo. Like we've played a lot of great ones recently that we could talk about.
Yeah. All right, so that'll do it for Alibis. Alibis highly recommended. Yep. So moving on to one that I played without Josh.
Yeah, this next one's all you.
Yep. So this is going to be Origin Story, new one from Stonemaier Games here. This is their Trick Taker. I have to say that I played this at 3 players. And overall, I thought this was a very solid trick taker. Like it's pretty standard trick taker, with the twist being that you're a superhero building up your origin story. So every round, you basically get a new you acquire a new ability as the superhero, and they're going to be crazy things like allow you to discard cards and draw cards from the cards that weren't dealt out to change up your hand. Or I had one that was, I think it was called like Shockwave, and basically everyone, if I use my Shockwave ability, everyone had to shuffle their hand and play a card randomly into the trick. And it was, so that was a way just to like wreck people's plans with that. So just and there's like a giant stack of abilities, so you get a lot of variation in there on how those abilities are going to apply. But I will say that I'm still trying to figure out if I did something wrong, but at 3 players, I was like looking through the rule book trying to see, do I take cards out of the deck? Because that's a common thing in trick takers, is to reduce the deck size so you have a little more planning. You can know what's like on the table or not with a trick taker. That's kind of like an important part about it, is knowing like what people can be holding in their hands. But in this game, I couldn't find any rule in there that said to like reduce the deck size. So we just had like a giant deck off to the side of the card. So I was just like, I can't plan for this because like I have no idea what's in people's hands. Like this is just great chaos or whatever. So this is one that I really want to play again because I thought it was interesting. I thought it had a neat hook with that origin story, and building and selecting those cards was a lot of fun. I think that was probably my favorite part about it, was getting those new power cards and being like, oh, I'm going to do this crazy thing during this round.
Yeah.
So that was definitely the standout feature of Origin Story. But the trick taker part, I don't know, it wasn't. Like if you're looking for a trick taker, this wasn't as crunchy as I wanted a trick taker. Like my preferences on trick takers are like Ghost of Christmas. That's one that that breaks people's brains. So I think Origin Story might land a little more with Josh. I know Josh, you've enjoyed Power Vacuum, I believe.
Power Vacuum, I've been a big fan of. I like Tournament at Avalon, Tournament at Camelot. I think is like the predecessor. I like both of those.
So a little more chaotic. Yeah. So I feel like you lean into more of the chaos and less of the control with the trick takers. Whereas like I definitely lean in more towards like Ghost of Christmas, Schadenfreude, the Cat in the Box. Like those are the ones that kind of stand out to me. Where these chaotic ones are a lot of fun to play. Like I really like Tournament at Avalon. I want to play that again.
I do want to get that back out. I almost picked that up at a Game Swap this weekend, even though I know chance has it was like $8. I wanted to get it again.
Yeah, so Origin Stories falls more towards that side, more towards the chaos, less towards the control. So I'm interested in trying it out again, but I don't know if it's going to like really go up my list too much higher. Yeah. So that's going to do it for Origin Story. So.
Nice. Yeah. Up next, we actually have the game that I was there for prior to Origin Story, which we've talked about on the podcast before, being interested. I think this was on our excited to play list.
Probably like a month ago or
not too
6 weeks
ago. We've been talking about it forever. And credit to Chance, this was an incredibly difficult one to kind of learn and teach. I think the rule book was a little bit tough, but that's going to be Molly House. Molly House really, really interesting theme. So you're kind of you're a member of like the queer community in England,
1730s,
London,
I think,
in the 1730s. Yeah. And trying to throw, like festivities around the city, and you're kind of going back and forth with the constables and these like rogue agents who are attempting to sort of like disrupt the community. And yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on. What did you think of it?
Yeah, so Josh covered kind of the overview of this, but now the way the game's going to work is a lot of it is there's a roll and move mechanic, which I felt like was fine. Usually a lot of people hate on roll and move, but I think it worked in this case, and it kind of limited your action selection, which I actually appreciate in games because I don't like it when people have full access to all their actions, then you have that AP that shows up. I like when a game forces you to just be like, nope, these are your two choices. Like, there you go.
It's not a feast for
Yeah, there you
have
go.
100 actions to take.
So I like that part of it, and a lot of the actions are really just kind of like drawing cards into your hand. Some of it's going to be playing cards down into your reputation, because essentially this is saying like, oh, you did something crazy at that house, and now you have a reputation at that house, and people are they're starting to realize that you might be in the queer community. Like probably not good for people to know that at this time and age, because there were some severe penalties, as we'll get to towards the end of this review here. But the game really centered around these two events. It's the festivities and the end of week events. So the festivities are probably the most interesting part of the game. This is where when someone triggers a festivity, you're going to be collectively contributing cards to kind of the center of the table to kind of build it's kind of like a poker hand in a way.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to build like a straight, or you're trying to build a set of cards with like one of the mollies, which are the queens and jacks, and trying to get them the right cards to basically build this set to basically put on a great festivity. And your goal in that festivity is to kind of have your cards selected for that set. Because if you have your card selected, that generally is how you're going to score joy, which is like that's the main victory condition, is scoring those joy points. Yeah. So I really liked this idea. And then the other thing you could do is you could throw in like a constable or a rogue. Well, not the rogue, the constables. You could try to throw in a constable and be like, hey guys, maybe you should throw in your constables, because if you manage to get the constables selected at the festivity, it's kind of like you guys laid low for this festivity, and now you foiled those constables. They go into the discard instead of into this gossip pile, which is going to be bad for you later. So, but this is that point where you kind of have to trust your other teammate. You got to trust the other people at the table and be like, hey guys, they put in a constable. Don't screw me. Don't you try to throw a festivity, because there's a constable here, so please throw in your constables. And then if they don't, then you actually have to take that constable and you get like investigated or whatever. So it has this cool thing where I feel like that semi-co-op nature really came out in that festivity section, which I really enjoyed in that. What do you think about those festivities?
Yeah, I thought Chance kind of got at this, but it almost felt like two mini games being combined into one game, right? So like on the one hand, you're doing the roll and move, where you're basically just acquiring cards and items. But the ultimate goal is the actual festivities, which felt like an entirely separate, almost like its own mini game, right? Where you're trying to build those poker hands to score points, and you're kind of you're scoring points not just for yourself but also for the community. So on the score track, like there's community joy, which advances along with your individual player score trackers. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting. We've been playing a lot of the gang recently, and a lot of people that we played with 4 people, but most of the people agreed that it felt a little bit similar to the gang in that respect, where you're kind of working together to build these poker hands, obviously with a lot more communication. But I thought that was really cool. I had a lot of fun. I thought the production was insane. The map was the board was just like beautiful. I thought the player sculpts were beautiful, and the cards, like, it was all really nicely done. And I just had fun playing. It took a little while to grasp kind of the finer parts of what you're doing. Because when you're having the festivities, what you're really doing at the end of the day, in addition to scoring the points from the festivity itself, is you're kind of like stacking these two decks to be favorable to the players in some way. You have your rumors deck,
gossip pile.
the gossip pile, and then what was the other one?
The other one's just the discard. So that's like the discard, the safe card.
Yeah,
the safe deck.
So you're collectively kind of trying to stack this deck in a way that's favorable to you. But as Chance mentioned, the semi co-op. I think that's really cool as a mechanic, and not something that you see a ton of. I've talked before on the podcast about being a fan of like one versus many, but I think semi co-op is also like another almost like underexplored mechanic that I love to see.
It's hard to pull off, and I feel like Molly House with those festivities, they did a great job. Like I actually felt like it was semi-cooperative during those festivities.
Kind of helping each other, but you can also like screw one another over. So you're there's a little bit of like back and forth. Ultimately, you have to build the most advantageous hand, but what you put in there is kind of up to you. And that was really cool. You could probably speak to this a bit better than I could, but the other thing that really sticks out about this game is that like while you all start as members of the community and you're trying to like collectively advance community joy in your own score trackers, there is another path you can take. So basically, you might want to protect yourself. So like being in the queer community, it was way more dangerous back in the 1730s. Still not great today, which is unfortunate. So, I feel like that it's really cool that this type of game was published, but essentially back in this time period, it's like, well, maybe you become, an informant to kind of like protect yourself. But you got to be careful because if you inform too much, you would cause the downfall of the community. And then that's bad for you because it's like, well, the community that you were trying to participate in is now gone. So you kind of have to balance out this whole thing of like, how much do I inform on this? How much do I actually go against the community just to protect my own interest? Because as the game progresses, like you have this end of week thing, and the end of week thing is where you're going to process the gossip pile. Not going to go through all the details on that, but the big thing that can happen here is that the houses can get investigated. They can get raided. So, and if a house is raided, the person with the most reputation at that house is going to get an indictment. And those indictments aren't going to happen until the end of the game, but the only way... bad.
Oh, yeah. Very bad. So the only way you can get rid of them is by becoming an informant. Basically, once you become an informant, you get those things pardoned. It's like, okay, fine, we'll get rid of those. So you're kind of like, okay, in my own self-interest, I need to become an informant so I can get rid of these indictments because it could result in potential death.
Player elimination, not just negative points, but both of us had indictments that would result on like the whim of a dice roll, whether you are like completely eliminated or just lose 5 or 10 points.
This is that other part that I really liked about the game was we got to the end game and the community survived. Like we ended up with community joy. Like it was great. It was like, this is great news for us. But now we have to process the indictments. And this is where I think a lot of people might not enjoy this, but I thought it was fantastic. And now you have to go through and you got to be like, okay, I have my indictment card. I had one major indictment. I was like, this is fine. It just says I need to roll below an 8. And I survive. I just lose some points and I'll win the game. It's fine. Like if I roll an 8+, I get hung. That's not great. I rolled a 9 on a 0 to 9 die. I rolled a 9, so I was hung and I was eliminated from the game. And I was just like, yep, that's fitting. I was the most whatever queer in that game. So it was like, okay, yep, we know who you are. You're gone. You're gone. So I thought that was really interesting. A really interesting and a fun way to end the game. I can see some people being very frustrated with that, right? Like just being like, a die roll made me lose this game, but it fit for the game. Everything all the way through, I had a great time with it.
Yeah, it was really interesting. The only thing I didn't want to do, I felt really bad about the informer path. I just personally, I was like, I don't think I could do this, even though I had indictments that would like result in death, and I was just like, like I'm gonna stick it out. I'm an ally. What
I thought was good was, so we had one player that became an informant. He got rid of his indictments. He was on the lowest on the score track at the end of the game, but because he didn't have any negative rolls, he ended up winning the game because like multiple players moved below him, and it was like this guy that was laying low the whole game. He wasn't like super outgoing, and he ended up being the winner of the game because of that. So I thought it was great. Molly House, I'm excited to revisit it. It is a game though that I don't see having like a long-term place in my collection. I feel like it's kind of an experience. Like I want to play it a couple more times and maybe experience that a few more times. But I don't see it being one that I want to return to over and over again.
Yeah, I kind of land with you on that. I would say if anything we've discussed about this game sounds like interesting to you, mechanics-wise or theme-wise, like definitely give it a shot. I wouldn't be like, oh, you have to run out and like buy this immediately. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was different. I really appreciated the theme. I thought that was really cool, really exciting to play. And like I said, it's kind of like this hodgepodge of a couple, like maybe like 2 or 3 different types of like mini games that you're playing that all kind of meld together to be this bigger thing. Really cool game. I'm glad I checked it out, and I will definitely, I'll be excited to give it like another play or two in the future and kind of see where it lands for me. I'm interested to see, after having experienced like the full span of the game, like what I think of it after that. Sometimes your initial impression is not like your final impression.
Yeah.
I give it a thumb up.
Yeah, thumb up. One thumb up, not 2 thumb. One thumb, one sideways. There we go. That's. But yeah, if you have an opportunity to try it, recommend it. So let's close out Molly House. Let's move on to our next one. This one is Josh's game, so I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah, so we picked up a couple games from Ivy Studios, which we've talked about a bit in the past in like the crowdfunding section of the pod. This is going to be Pillars of Fate. So we picked up Pillars of Fate and Time to Panic on kind of like a group buy. I will say, I'll lead with this. I felt like ultimately the Time to Panic Pillars of Fate combo, not my favorite.
Neither were hits.
Yeah, not a big hit. Pillars of Fate, I thought was like, as always with Ivy Studios, like impeccably produced. I thought the quality of the cards and the components was amazing. I love lane battlers, so I thought it was cool from that perspective. I was really excited to play it. We had played Veiled Fate before. I have backed Scales of Fate.
Oh, yep.
And this is Pillars of Fate. I hope people are impressed that I got those three correct.
I'm impressed.
I really enjoyed Veiled Fate. Pillars of Fate just kind of draws on the same visuals, the same art, the same world, and Scales of Fate will as well. But this one is more of a lane battler where you still have that mechanic of kind of like your demigods going on different quests and there being different consequences for succeeding or failing those quests, or for those quests going towards the scorpion tails or the
feathers,
phoenix feathers. I believe they're phoenixes, but the feathers, as Chance mentioned. So it's what it really came down to me. I thought it was what it came down to for me was that I thought it was really well designed. I thought the production was insane. Like, it looks really good on the table. But just like the core gameplay, I felt like it was almost, this is a thing with lane battlers for me, is I like a little bit of crunch. I felt like it got really crunchy and thinky, where I was just trying to constantly evaluate what was going on and what might happen if I swung things one way or the other. And, to some people that might be really cool. You might appreciate that. I think in lane battlers, I tend to favor the sort of less crunchy ones. And we've talked about some in the past that we've played that we really liked.
I mean, I'll just basically echo those statements. Pillars of Fate had some interesting systems. Like, I don't want to knock it for not being interesting, because it did have
It's a well-made game,
yeah,
for sure.
Like, the lane battling was engaging, and it was really like, so you're playing cards face up or face down, so essentially, like, you could kind of secretly play cards or to make the player think you're doing something that you're not, or whatever, right? Like, that's the whole thing, like doing a bit of a bluffing game in that. And you're basically trying to get you have power on your cards, but also you have a number of feathers or scorpion tails on the cards, which are the feathers and scorpions determines what quest is going to process, and then the powers on the card is going to determine who wins that lane. And then you could be like, well, you can see one of their face-up cards is like a high power card, and you're like, well, they're probably going to win that one, so maybe you want to swing the quest towards that like bad condition, like the negative points condition. So you can kind of like influence those lanes to go in those different directions. And it's like the low number cards I think have more symbols on them, and the high number cards have less symbols on them.
Yes.
So there's that distribution. It has kind of that interesting distribution of like your high strength cards can't influence the quest much, but your low strength cards can influence the quest a lot. So I think it did have a neat design space in it. And I do think there is a good decision space in there. It's just, like Josh said, it had a little too much crunch, like trying to parse out what the different quests and what the values of the quests were. And I felt like our game got into the mode of just being like, well, I don't know if I can win these quests, so let me just try to make these as negative as possible for you. Like, that was kind of where
low scoring game.
Yeah, it went into a kind of a degenerate game state with that, right? So because of that, and like Josh said, I really like those kind of lighter lane battlers. Like, we played recently For the Emperor, that little tiny box all play one.
Really good.
And I felt like that was fantastic. That's kind of the weight that I'm looking for in a lot of lane battlers. But like, there's other ones like Dracula vs. Van Helsing and Lone Wolves and Desperate Oasis. Line of Fire. There's so many that are just like, I would put above it, that it's just hard to recommend Pillars of Fate, because it's nowhere near like even the top 5, maybe even the top 10 of lane battlers that I played.
I feel it has partially fallen victim to the fact that we've played a lot of really good lane battlers over the past year or so. And even today, Caper Europe.
Yeah, Capers. Yeah,
lane battler. I think I would rate that higher. Well-made game. I think if you're into like crunchier lane battlers and you really like maybe you like the world of like Veiled Fate and Scales of Fate, which is coming out, and things like that, then it's worth a shot. You could, but for me, ultimately, it's probably a sell.
Yeah,
probably would be a sell.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Time to Panic in a future episode, but that one's getting
that's also going to the sell pile.
That's probably getting a thumbs down from. we'll get to that one. Don't worry.
Enough for like a similar reason, I would think. You know, just as far as it being, I don't want to spoil too much of our thoughts on it, but you know, being like a lighter, kind of like a number orientation, wordy, like one of those types of games where you're just, I don't know if I'm doing a good job of explaining it, but for the type of game it is, it felt a little bit like crunchier and subject to like randomness.
All right, spoiler. I didn't plan on talking about it, but spoiler, like we played Time to Panic, and then probably within the same week, we played Take Time, which is a newer game that just came out.
Yeah.
And like, if you're looking at these two games, buy Take Time. Don't buy Time to Panic. Take Time's just better.
Take Time's good.
Yeah. So there we go. That's the conclusion on Pillars of Fate. Buy Take Time. That's okay. So I think we can wrap that one up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on. We're gonna do these shorter sessions that we always have here. This is gonna be our excited to play.
Rapid fire, yeah.
Yeah, rapid fire excited to play. I don't even know much about these games, so we're just gonna mention them. So excited to play. I recently picked up Emberheart. Emberheart is a new game from Mind Clash. This is kind of like their like made to play series or something like this. Kind of their lighter game series. Falls in with Ironwood, which is their 2-player dueling game, which I really like.
Iron Forest.
No, Ironwood. Iron Forest is the flicking one. Ironwood.
Okay.
Iron Forest is the flicking one.
I mixed these up the other day.
Yeah, so Ironwood and then Iron... man, I'm off.
Now I've thrown you off.
There we go. We're done. This is in the end. So Emberheart is in their made-to-play series. It's kind of like their lighter games. And it has this cool little worker placement bidding mechanism where you're essentially going to throw down like this stack of tokens in this area to determine like what action you're going to take. So it has a lot of... It sounds like it has a lot of kind of player interaction and trying to like place your bids in a way that are going to guarantee your action while trying to prevent other players from taking those actions. So I really like that type of interaction where you're always like on your toes for what other players are trying to do. So yeah. So I'm interested in playing this one, and I'll just kick this off to you for the next game on the list.
Yeah, sure. So this is going to be Ahoy. This is one I've had for a little while now, and just recently had a couple of expansions released with some new factions available to play that I'm interested to check out. But yeah, I initially kind of overlooked this one, but I read some things on like forums and BGG and all over the place that this actually plays really well at 2 and maybe was a little bit underrated. So I'm excited to learn it and give it a play and just kind of see what I think. I'm a big fan of other games in that sort of like universe of like leader games as Arcs, Root, others that I'm blanking on. All have been like big hits for me. I like the asymmetry between the factions. I like the art style and kind of like the cartoon like piratey characters. One of the factions has like a sea monster Leviathan that someone can play as, whereas like another faction is a group of like turtles who are focused on artillery and sort of like ranged combat. So it just seems like really interesting to me from like an art and like mechanics perspective, and just looks like a lot of fun. I'm excited to learn it and get it to the table soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing Ahoy as well. And now on to our next one, excited to play. This is one I just picked up for super cheap. I got it for like $18. This is Icecool Wizards. Now this is where Iron Forest comes into play.
Okay.
Because
this is what I was thinking of.
So Iron Forest is a flicking game. I don't think it ever went to retail. It was made by the Icecool team. Like they came out with Icecool originally, and then they had like Icecool 2 and then Icecool Wizards. And then Iron Forest was like a big Kickstarter box, which I found at a local game shop, knowing nothing about, bought it, and I was like, I don't have a dexterity game. So let me give this a shot. Like
Super
the guy at the shop recommended it. And we got it played, and man, it is so good. Yeah, I absolutely love it. So I was interested in trying out some of the other games. I've heard about some of the Icecool games on some other podcasts, and Icecool Wizards was the one that popped up as like, this is probably the one that's worth playing, because you get to like, you're going out collecting like these little spells or whatever. You're going to these classrooms. You're turning those in for like your victory points, everything. So you're trying to like go through the doorways to collect resources to get these things. Yeah. So it has a neat system associated with it. I felt like it was a little lighter than Iron Forest, a little easier to get to the table, and also, like I said, I got it for $18. So
pretty nice.
Like I feel like it's just gonna be a nice one where like Iron Forest is one that I don't really want to take with me places. Whereas like Iron or Icecool Wizards, I feel like I could take that out and like play that with friends anywhere basically. So yeah, that's Icecool Wizards. Just a nice little flicking game that I'm excited to get to the table.
Sounds like winner to me.
Yep. And then I'll just take the next one, and you can take the last one here. So
sure.
Excited to play this one. I actually just did a review on my YouTube channel. This is Whale Riders. So we have actually played this one before, but I felt like it was actually kind of a hit for both of us, right?
Yeah.
This is a contract fulfillment game, which is honestly not my favorite mechanic, but this one is just so snappy. Like the decisions are fast. You're just going down to these different ports. You're going to try to buy goods if you can, and then storm count tiles are going to come out, and they're going to kind of force you to go forward to the cheaper goods. So you kind of have this race mechanic where it's like, oh, do I stay back at this port and try to earn enough money to buy these expensive goods, or do I race forward to buy the cheaper goods and potentially just race towards that final port so you can start buying up those pearl tokens that trigger the end of the game, so to prevent other people from kind of gaining more victory points. So I feel like it just has a nice balance of like that contract fulfillment with the actions being just really snappy and fast, and a quick gameplay loop, which makes it enjoyable. So
yeah, I was a big fan. 2 thumbs way up.
Yeah.
Super simple, super easy to teach, small box game, relatively small box game. Love to get that to the table. I want to play it again. I think everybody that's played it has been clamoring for some more Whale Riders.
It's hard to hate a game that has a light rule set and plays really fast that has interesting decisions. I feel like if this game played in like 2 hours, I would probably hate it. But the fact that we can get it done in like 30 minutes.
Need a few more tracks to advance on and some more resource types. Yeah, it's a great game. I highly recommend checking out Whale Riders if you get the chance. Not the card game.
Yeah, not Whale Riders, the card game.
Okay.
Yeah, the board game.
I haven't played the card game.
Yeah.
That's not an indictment on it. I just haven't played it.
And then the last one we've actually played as well, and this is,
Yeah, so this is one I'm really eager to play more of. It falls in the bucket of we got a little bit of a play-in at the Extra Life event we were at this weekend, and really just like it left me eager for more, and that's going to be Take Time, which we actually already mentioned earlier when we talked about Time to Panic. So Take Time's kind of a hidden information game where each player is going to have like their own set of cards in 2 suits. And it's it's scenario based, right? So I think of something a little bit mechanically not like Bomb Busters, but in like format, sort of like that, where you're advancing through these progressively more difficult scenarios. But the gist of it is there's a clock on the center of the table which has like an hour hand on it and some various like rules for like placement. So there's 6 places you can actually play cards out, and you're going to be playing cards for the most part face down. And there's a few placement rules that you're going to kind of go over at the end. So it's really just a 3-phase game. It was really easy to teach. Phase 1 is just kind of group discussion without looking at the cards that you have. So you don't even know what you're holding, but you'll kind of collectively talk about what you might want to do this round, what makes sense, that sort of thing. Then you move into the actual placement phase, and then you go into where you're going to just take turns placing cards face down. There is a way to place cards face up, but it's limited. It's sort of like a player aid kind of crutch hint system where you get, like in our game with 3 players, there were 3 opportunities to play cards face up to like reveal some information. And then you go into the resolution phase where you're actually checking to make sure that you fulfilled all of the rules for that clock. So really, like, it comes down to like, was everything played sequentially? So like you can play multiple cards to a single space. So like a 6 and a 2 would give you 8. So does your clock actually make sense as you go around? Was everything played sequentially? Did you not exceed 24? Did you follow the rules that were printed on the clock? That kind of thing. So really cool game. I thought it was a lot of fun. Really only played like the introductory scenarios and want to get some more in soon. I think it plays well at a variety of player counts. We played with 3, but I think even at 2, this would be a really interesting one. So yeah, eager to get that one back out.
Yeah, I mean, my summary for this description is that this is just the advanced the mind. Like, if you played the mind where you're just trying to play cards in that ascending order without communicating with people, like, this is just an advanced version of the mind, because you're just trying to play cards in an ascending order around that clock without talking to anyone else. So you do have a little more information, like you can reveal the cards, like you said. But yeah, it's great. I'm really enjoying it. We played, I think, 2 rounds of it, and I really want to get back to the table. So yeah, that's Take Time. All right, let's move on to our Kickstarter section, where we're just going to quickly talk about some Kickstarters. And honestly, the first one here, I feel bad about it. I think it's over. So I don't even know why I have it on this list. But maybe to make you guys, this is just to make you guys jealous and tell you about a game that I'm going to get and you can't get. So that's Wonderland's War Duel. So this is a Kickstarter that recently launched, and I had a friend that owns Wonderland's War, so he was backing the expansion, and I told him, hey, I'll buy the Duel off you. So yeah, got it. I really enjoy Wonderland's War. I felt like it's a really fun bank building game, although I would say that a player can kind of just get crushed in this game. There's no really good catch-up mechanic in it. Like, if you're just drawing poorly, like, you're just done, like, in this game. So that's my only downside with it. It also takes, like, it's arduous to set up. It can take a little longer. Like, it definitely has some flaws, but I do find it to be a really fun experience around the table. So it's one that, like, I'm excited to play again. I am excited to see what they do with Wonderland's War Duel. So that's why I decided to pick it up. So yeah.
Yeah. Likewise, I'd agree with those points. The Wonderland's War is a lot of fun. I agree the setup is pretty like long and involved, but as far as like what it's like area control kind of
area control, bag building.
Yeah, yep. Super fun. I love bag building as a mechanic. But yeah, it's a good game. I'm looking forward to the Duel variant as well. And I think you picked up. I mean, this isn't we're going to talk about this one today, but Aquatica Duel. I think we might.
I haven't picked it up yet. I've been waiting for the pre-order to go to order.
Right. Yeah. That was another one that we were excited to play as far as like the Duel games go.
Yeah.
There's one for everything now.
Yeah.
I think that does it for Wonderland's War Duel. But up next, we were going to talk about one that I've backed that's been super. It kind of came out of nowhere on my radar.
You backed it before it was cool.
So. I did slightly. Yeah, a few days before it became really cool. But now it's everywhere. It's like number one on the BGG hotness list. It's really high up. All of the like hot reviews on BGG were this game, and that is Vampire Lords. So I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I really like the production. I like the theme. And I read a review on BGG where somebody said, this is like Tyrants of the Underdark, which is one of my favorite games that I own, meets Dune, which I also love. So that was enough to kind of hook me and sell me and bring me in. So really looking forward to Vampire Lords sometime in the next couple of years.
Yep, I agree with that totally. So yeah,
about the hype.
Yep. Now, last one here on this list. This is one that I actually haven't backed. I don't think Josh knows anything about it. I'm using it as a segue into our feature topic, though, because I got some commentary on it. So Threshold is one that I was looking at. It's this big kind of open world game. They say it's kind of representing the MMO style game where you and your friends can kind of go out and just explore this world and do things. And like the one line that got me to not back this game, the one line in their copy or whatever was 50 plus hours of gameplay. And I was just like, I don't need 50 plus hours of gameplay in a single game. Like I barely get a game to the table more than like 2 or 3 times. So I don't see why that would be an appeal. And that was the thing that prevented me from backing this game. So I will say that it looks pretty. It looks amazing. Like the production looks great. There's a lot of things that drew me in. Like the art was the thing that got me to click on it, looked really exciting. But, I'm just getting a little worn out on campaign style games a little bit. They can just take a little while. And, I don't want to talk too much about that. I'm going to just take
Save
this
that for the future.
Yep. We're going to use that to get into our segue. This is a smooth transition because like we believe in quality here at Shelf to Table. So this is us improving our production with these beautiful, easy segues that I'm spending way too much time on talking about.
To be able to.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just get on to our feature topic. And this is Undaunted Stalingrad. And this is a game that we just wrapped up the campaign tonight. And you know what? Since this is your game, Josh, I'm going to let you guide us through the start of this.
Yeah, so Undaunted Stalingrad is the latest in the Undaunted series. And it is
not anymore, though.
Not anymore, yeah. Now there's more interesting stuff, I'll say, theme-wise than Stalingrad. It is a campaign-style game where one player takes on the role of the Soviets and one player takes on the role of the Germans in World War II, the occupation of Stalingrad. So you play over the course of roughly 15 games. Ours actually lasted a little bit less. But yeah, it's, the core mechanics are really interesting. It's sort of a deck builder, combat style game where you are, you have your dudes on a map. You have your initial starting deck, and then you draw 4 cards each. You play one of those cards to determine who takes initiative, which is a really fun mechanic in and of itself, something we've really liked in other Undaunted games. And then you're playing cards for the actions listed on them, right? So you're like moving units around, shooting, bombing, whatever it may be, depending on the units. You can clog up your opponent's deck with your scouts and do these like conceal actions and things like that. So lots of interesting stuff there. And then each game is essentially maybe like a 40-minute self-contained battle with some historical text, flavor text that will tell you about like your units and your characters. Throughout the campaign, you will take casualties, you'll lose characters, you'll upgrade them, you will find new units, and lots of interesting stuff going on like campaign-wise. But I think ultimately where I landed with this one was no matter how good a game is, and I think this is a great game, I don't know how I feel about playing a game like 15 times. And, we stretched this one out a bit, but I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but there have been other campaign games. We stretched this one out a bit, and it's still, at the end of it, I was a little bit relieved. just to be done. I thought it was fantastic. I love the mechanics. I thought it was really interesting. But yeah, it kind of, you get a little bit of fatigue when you play the same game like over and over. And sometimes we're trying to play, especially in a campaign, you're trying to play it like weekly or bi-weekly. It's just like the opportunity cost there of, what if I was playing like Whale Riders? What if I got in some more games of Take Time? You know, all those other games. So yeah, what'd you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to kick this back to mechanics really quick with the Undaunted system. Overall, I really like this Undaunted system. On my YouTube channel that I'm plugging again, you know, I just got to, I'm nearing the end of my top 100 series, and I think Undaunted landed in like my top 40-ish games, somewhere around there. Undaunted Stalingrad. And it's really because the mechanics of Undaunted I am really engaged in.
Yeah.
So Josh mentioned that initiative system. I love drawing those 4 cards and choosing a card for your initiative, because generally the higher valued cards are going to be the ones that give you more abilities. They're usually like your better cards, your stronger cards. But sometimes like not taking the initiative can be detrimental to you. Like,
it can be really bad.
Yeah. Especially if you're near in the end game. And like if you are like, I need to be able to play this card to be able to take the victory condition, and if your opponent takes the initiative and just like maybe they kill that unit that you needed to take control of that location, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like, yeah, I'm out of this now. So that initiative system, like, that is probably like the best decision in the game. I absolutely love that part of the game. Then the deck building itself, I really like the fact that you have access to your entire supply. Like, you do a bolster
just thinking
action.
about that.
Yeah. And we played another game like this, Martin Wallace. Exactly.
Yeah,
yep.
I was thinking about that one.
Yep. So that's another one where it's a much older one, it's a little slower. You can definitely feel its age when you're playing a few acres of snow. Whereas, Undaunted, it's kind of cool where, you have access to everything. And it's just like you play a card that's going to do a bolster, and you get to go and like fish out whatever card you want to add to your deck that's going to be most beneficial to you. And I feel like you have a lot more control over manipulating your deck. There's like, we didn't use the hunker down action much, but you can actually like move units from your hand back into the supply. That way you can actually control what you can draw a little bit better. So I feel like there was a lot of really cool ways to manipulate your deck in this game. But now moving on to my commentary on campaigns, right? This is where we get to the fact that, 15 games is a lot. Like even at 40 minutes a game, it was kind of like after like, I don't know, somewhere around 6 to 8 games, I was kind of like, I'm kind of done with this. I would like to change up the theme a little bit. Like, Josh also has Undaunted Callisto, and I've been looking forward to playing that one.
Really excited for that one.
Like, I feel like it's going to have the similar mechanics to Undaunted Stalingrad, but it's going to have sci-fi, which I'm more into than World War II. I'm just not a big World War II buff, you know?
Same.
So, so like, I'm excited to give that sci-fi theme a try, and I think that kind of made this campaign drag a little bit more, because I was like, I know you have that other game, and I want to play that one more, because I'm kind of like done with Stalingrad at this point, but we need to like finish this campaign, and I felt like we had this obligation to finish the game instead of like wanting to finish the game.
I hate that campaign games fall into that pattern, but it does happen.
Yeah. And also, there's other issues I have with some campaign games. Like, I don't think Undaunted was the worst in this one, but introducing new rules, like sometimes that just slows things down over the course of the game. Like, you're always trying to, like, every time you pull out the game, you're like, I got to learn something new now. Like, I can't just hop into this. And then, like, we were adding new keywords, and we could never remember what the keywords were. So there were just some barriers that made the game a little harder to fully enjoy, I would say, because I don't want to say, like I said, don't want to say I didn't enjoy it. In like my top 40, 50-ish games, like, it is way up there on my list. Like, I really like the Undaunted system. It's just, there are some barriers to that campaign game. Now, if you're the type of person that's like, I love playing Brass 100 times, like, then sure, play it, get a campaign game, go for it. But if you're more like falling in our category where you're like, I want to play a game like, maybe 1 to 5 times, then I'm probably done with it. Then maybe second guess yourself on like, do you need to buy that campaign game? Yeah,
it's definitely made me think. I think in the future I'll think long and hard before I pick up a game that you need to play like 15 or so times. But one thought I had afterwards, because today, we finished the campaign, but we played like 3 or 4 games in quick succession. Yeah. If I were to do it all over again, or if someone else out there is like really into the World War II theme or the Undaunted mechanics and system, what I would recommend you do is you just take like a day, take like a Saturday, play like 4 games of it. It's not that long. Each campaign game can range from like 25 to 40 minutes, I would say. Yeah. And that's just like a rough guess. Just get like 4 games in and then chunk it up, instead of like, I think what we fell into
spread it
was
out.
Like kind of, we're going to play it like once every like couple weeks, and then you're like unpacking the whole thing, and it's like this whole ordeal. So if I were to do it again, or if I were to play something similar, I think I would just do like longer sessions where then you're only playing it like, 5 times or something like that. And you're just getting a lot more in, and you're kind of in the swing of things. You're not reminding yourself of like little rules and keywords and things like that. So that would be my recommendation. If it is like, I'd say similar to Chance, like it's a really good game. I would highly recommend playing it, especially if you can find it on sale. It's a little pricey, but really good game. Just like chunk it up a little bit more into those like larger sessions, and I think you'd have a great time.
Or if you don't want the campaign, there's I feel like there's other options out there for you. So like we never got to play like Undaunted Normandy, and then there's also Undaunted Battle of Britain, which adds in like airplanes and stuff.
That's true.
So there's some other entry points for Undaunted, which I feel like could be a better solution. Then also one that is very high in both our lists, I believe, is not Line of Fire Burnt Moon. I call it Undaunted the Lane Battler. It does change things up a little bit. Maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode. But it really uses that core Undaunted system with a few modifications to make it work for them.
Criminally underrated.
Yes,
I don't agree 100% with
agree.
All of you big reviewers out there dumping on a great game.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree with you. There are several other entry points if you're not feeling like the big campaign style game, and I would echo that for other games too. We've been playing Clank Legacy too, which I love, but it does fall into like some of the same traps that I would say most Legacy games do, as far as like you're playing it like consecutively a lot.
And adding new rules all the time.
Adding new rules, new tokens, new stuff, new cards. And then there's Clank Catacombs. It's right there. There's Clank in Space. There's other shorter versions available if that's like something that's not for you. So there's something for everybody, I think, in the campaign space.
But yeah, so I do have 2 more things to talk about on the Undaunted specifically, because I want to. So there's one highlight. I do want to talk about the campaign system with the casualties and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I actually really liked how this game handled casualties. Like you have your cards, and basically you can bolster your deck to get other cards in your deck, but you're also taking a risk during each one of those sessions. Like if you bolster those cards, you could potentially lose those people. And then also you have like the reserve deck, which if those people get damaged, you're still going to have them. They just get downgraded and they become like slightly more, like there are cards that for riflemen are like the main units, and like some of them would lose the ability to attack
or move.
Some of them would
Makes
lose
it difficult to control points.
I also had the issue with a couple of mine couldn't control, and control was like a big part of the game, and that was like I have these units that just can't do that primary action. So I really liked how this game handled casualties. I thought it was really, really well done with that system, and it just mildly, I guess there was a dark humor with it, because you would get these people and you'd be like, oh, it's a normal soldier, and then they'd come back and they'd have like a sling and like a pistol.
Yeah, pistol instead of a rifle, and it's like, oh, he can only attack people in the same space as him now, not like multiple spaces away.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I felt like casualty system was really good. Like
it was good.
Yeah.
Upgrades as well. It really, in addition to taking casualties and getting those like weaker units, you can upgrade units at the end of each game, kind of at random. You get 2 upgrades. And upgrade them into a more effective unit. Maybe they have higher initiative values. Maybe they have upgraded actions.
Another action sometimes.
But then that's another person that you're like scared to lose. Maybe you'll wind up with a scout that can't scout.
Yeah. And this is where I feel like if Josh and I knew the Undaunted system a little better, we probably would have approached the campaign a little differently. And also if we had a better understanding of, like the consequences of our actions. And that's one of the issues with playing a campaign game once, is that I don't think either of us ever knew what the consequences were going to be, right? Like we just kind of like, we're just playing units, and we were like, whatever, let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, and that I honestly, one example from today where that really came into focus for me was one option you have is if you feel like you're in an unwinnable situation and you don't want to be taking like mass casualties, it's just to concede. So you can, there's 15 games, you can concede 1 of 15. It's not like such a bad thing, right? I conceded in this like almost probably unwinnable scenario towards the end. It actually just like ended the campaign. We didn't even play like the 15th game or whatever. It was just like, you have actually just like now lost. And it wasn't clear from, I don't hate it. I don't have like hard feelings against it, but it didn't really like make that clear when I was making this decision. So I effectively like conceded the campaign without realizing it at the end.
Well, this also, talking about that last campaign, this leads me into kind of my final comment, and you'll probably have something to say on this too. The fact that, so the scenarios, this is where, this is where I don't.
They're a little unbalanced sometimes.
Yeah.
Swingy.
Yeah, so I don't know how well they did with the scenario design, because sometimes we got into a scenario and we're just like, how are you supposed to win? I feel like I'm just going to crush you. And then I was like, yeah, I crushed you. And then the game would swing the other direction. It would kind of give the other player a bit more of a benefit. And then like I felt like there were more than half of them were pretty well balanced. I felt like 8 out of the 15 or so we played were decently balanced.
For the most part,
there were a few, like 4 or 5 that came out where it was just like, you're sorry. This game's over in like 20 minutes, and you're just going to be destroyed. So.
Yeah, you're just going to lose all of your units.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe where the conceding becomes like
more important,
a valid move.
Yeah,
I don't think any of the games where we concede. I think we learned eventually like when to concede. There were maybe like 3 games out of the 14 or so that we played where we actually took that action, and some of them were just like it was like, how am I supposed to win this?
So my final thoughts on this is really just that like Undaunted as a system, that's 2 thumbs up for me.
Yeah.
Undaunted Stalingrad as a game is kind of like maybe there's something better.
Yeah, I would say I think a lot of it comes down to what you think of that theme too. Like, are you like a fan of World War II games or like war games and things like that? I think it would be right up your alley.
Yeah.
If you're kind of like on the fence or like it's sort of interesting to you, then I give it a thumb up. And if you're interested in more like, I don't know, like us, probably
sci-fi, fantasy,
listen to like sci-fi and stuff like that, then like check out Callisto. Or a Line of Fire or something like that.
I do hear Callisto is probably not the greatest entry point to Undaunted, though. I do hear it's a bit harder to grasp. There's a little more complications, a little more asymmetry with it, I guess, between the players.
That sounds fun to me.
Oh yeah. Like so, if you want to learn that, I feel like that might be the best place to start. But just as a warning, like I have seen some other reviews talking about how it's not really the greatest or the easiest way to kind of ease into the Undaunted system. So maybe Line of Fire.
Yeah, there you go. Check it out. Really cool card play system. Highly recommend checking it out, especially if you're into the theme, if that speaks to you.
All right, well, I don't have anything else to add on Undaunted Stalingrad. How about yourself?
I don't think so, no. Glad to have experienced it. And, it's definitely shaped my views on campaign games a bit, for better or worse. But like I said, that core system is really neat. Yeah,
and I'm glad to get to Undaunted Callisto finally. We'll maybe have that out.
Waiting.
Yep. So that's going to do it for episode number... Is this episode number 4? Episode number 4. Yeah, there we go. For Shelf to Table. So if you are tuning in, thank you for listening to us. And if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. So we'll talk to you next time.
See you soon.